probably have the best job in the GA. It brings me into 32 counties, and I'm meeting week after week so many tremendous people that are working at the coalface at all levels of the game, and it's just hard to beat it. So this evening we have a little discussion. I'm going to talk little, and hopefully the lads here talk a little bit more. But what a year we had in hurling. Tremendous, you know, it just has to be up there with one of the best years ever. Starting off with the National League, hugely competitive games, huge interest, and I suppose rank outsiders, team from Kilkenny actually ended up winning it, so couldn't have been too bad. Anyway, their year really had to belong to Limerick. After I think 45 years in the wilderness, to actually come out on top at the end of it, you wouldn't have blood in your veins if you didn't feel for them. And you know, sport is cruel. You don't always get what you deserve. And to see, I suppose, Cinderella getting to the ball and going away with the prince, just at least sometimes gives us all a lift. So what's going to happen next year? But anyway, you know, as I said, hurling, the championship this year was just unreal. If we just go to the semi-finals out there and go to the final, just unbelievable excitement. The games were so close, and the replays just added to all that. So you could say that hurling is on the crest of a wave, but like any business, I suppose any organisation, any club, when you're on top, when you think you've cracked it, if you fail to evaluate, if you fail to look at how things are going, you could be on a slippery road to nowhere. So, not wanting to be negative, I think, you know, certainly in my job as hurling development, we've got to look at the country overall. And I probably mentioned this last year, maybe the year before, but hurling on both sides, as I had in the first slide. You have the top tier, and hurling is just in a place that it probably never was before. But in some other counties, we need a lot of support, and have a kind of a crooked line drawn across the middle of the country there, just to give some idea that, you know, in the Liam McCarthy counties, hurling is just thriving. You could say in the McDonough counties, it's not too bad, depending on where you're from, depending on how you look at things. But in the Ring, Rackard and Mar counties, I was sure last year, but I'm twice as sure this year. We need huge support. We need huge help. And it's nobody's fault. It's just geography, it's history, it's everything. And now that hurling has got status as hurling and hurling heritage culture, we've got that status. It's not worth tuppence if we don't get out and do something about it. So, you know, if you look at that line and you look up above it, people in those counties just crying out for help. Now, below the line, there are pockets as well that need huge help, but they're fortunate that in places with, say, like Carlow and Wicklow, they're surrounded by hurling counties, so at least they can slip in next door, they can get games, they can get people to look after their teams quite easily. But north of the line, it's tricky. So, you know, where can the help come from? Well, quite simply, it has to come from our football brothers and sisters. And it is happening, but it has to happen more. That in, I suppose, a football club, football county, the people that say, yes, football is our main game, but we're going to do a little bit of hurling. And they may be out here at All-Ireland some days, let them be football or hurling, lads are chatting and say we have a great football county, great football club, but we have a nice little under-10 hurling team as well. We need to do that, and it won't progress unless we can do so. But anyway, just tonight, rather than me talking about hurling on top of that line and in places, I suppose in the, as I said, the Ring, Rackard and Mar counties, I have invited 3 people here that are working all their lives at the coalface. I have Kevin Kelly, who is hurling development manager in Ulster, and we have Ryan Gaffney and Pádraig Dowdall that are regional development officers in hurling up in Ulster as well. So, you know, they're at the coalface. These are the guys that know what's happening. These are the guys that are beavering away doing tremendous work, and these are the guys that know what's happening. So I'm just going to put a couple of questions to the lads here. Hope your mics are turned on, lads. And I might start off with Kevin. And Kevin, what in your opinion are the greatest challenges facing players in, say, the Ring, Rackard and Mar counties?
Martin, for the players, it seems to be, for me, it's completely a numbers game. And that's down to the small numbers of players, of really, really dedicated coaches that there are in them counties, and of simply the number of clubs that there are in them counties. You make a good point there with the line across the country, but personally, I don't believe there should be, but it's no coincidence that there's 5 tiers in hurling now. And a lot of this is down to numbers as well, because if you just look at each of them counties that are in each of them tiers, it's very evident to see that in Tier 1, most of them counties have over 20 clubs, Tier 2's less than 16, Tier 3's less than 10, Tier 4's less than 6, and the Tier 5 is in between 1 and 3, 1 and 4 clubs in some cases. Now this has 2 main impacts. The first one is the lack of a regular and meaningful games programme. We're all involved in the GAA, and we all would strive to have our league and championship campaign. And in each of these counties or in these clubs, this is very, very hard to achieve. And then that takes in the big travel distances for games. So you had mentioned it before, the geography. Take clubs in places like Donegal or West Mayo, they might have to travel over an hour just to get a game. Whereas below the line, there's definitely a few counties there too. Like you might take Kerry or Carlow, and I'm not from them counties, so I'm just saying this, like, it might be a lot easier for them to maybe cross over the border to get to another county to get a good, meaningful game against a good established hurling club. But the other wee thing then is for the players is, and you alluded to it at the end there, is not allowing the game to breathe and survive. The great Paddy Butler once said, he's actually said it on a number of occasions, that every kid should have a chance to hold a hurl. And we come from a great GAA family that covers 6 codes. And every one of them kids who play in that family, no matter what their club is, should have a chance to experience playing a game of hurling.
Thanks, Kevin. Pádraig, I just ask you, I would say, from a coach's perspective, be it a full-time staff like yourself or from a club coach, what are the challenges that you're coming across day in, day out?
Well, some of the clubs I've been working with, the coaches or the managers, it might just be maybe themselves. So they maybe feel isolated. They're working with a team of players, and they find it very hard to get help. Some people be maybe afraid to get involved in hurling. I suppose there's sort of a stigma around hurling. If you haven't played, people feel like just I can't help out. I played football, but just I don't want to help out with the hurling, and that's not true. We've plenty of coaches. We spoke about it earlier. Coach education, foundation courses. We've everything in place in the GAA to help people, to upskill people, and try and get them involved. And that's an area that we're trying to work on ourselves. Also, I suppose then teams, maybe the better players, there's a big issue then I suppose with the dual player, especially the good players who are maybe still at school. They could be on county minor panels, there could be school teams, so they're getting very hard to get access to their players. So that's another wee issue they have. I suppose players aren't available, and fixtures then would be the next thing. I suppose we're trying to organise different wee leagues, and I suppose we're working cross-county, probably cross-provincial, and I suppose fixtures is a massive issue at the minute, and we try our best to sort of facilitate counties as we can.
Thanks, Pádraig. Ryan, I'm hedging my bets here, as a former inter-county hurler with Armagh, and I suppose a club hurler with a famous Middleton, going to hurl for the next 15 years at least. What are the differences? What are the challenges you see? You know, how does it compare your career hurling, would say, for Armagh and maybe somebody hurling for Na Piarsaigh in Limerick and hurling inter-county for Limerick? Are there any differences at all?
I suppose maybe the biggest difference would be, for me, would be the sense of respect you maybe get in your county, or something like I heard with Armagh for years. And if you compare that to the profile that maybe a hurler from Limerick or Kilkenny would get within their county, and the respect they would get, you know. So throughout them years, I heard with Armagh, I've went to a right few games, and after the game you'd be going for a meal, and in some of them hotels you'd be meeting people who be questioning whether Armagh had a hurling team. A lot of people don't know that Armagh or even Tyrone or any weaker counties have hurling teams, so maybe that would be the biggest difference, just, you know, the respect and the profile that a senior hurler would get in Kilkenny compared to an Armagh.
Very good. I want to ask you to put hands up now, but you know, just to, I suppose, clarify the point. We have a poster up there from last year just promoting Ring Record and Mar and McDonough competitions. And I wonder how many of you down here would actually know. Well, you've heard one already from an earlier speaker. How many of you would know what counties won the Ring Record and Mar out here last year, or what counties took part in the finals, or how many of you were ever at any of those games? So we won't ask for a show of hands, but I know myself, before I came into this job, the hand wouldn't be going up, to be honest about it. But since I've come into the job, my eyes have been opened to what's happening in so many counties and the brilliant work that's happening. I just ask maybe Kevin and Pádraig together, would say, as full-time staff working in these counties, and you have Damien Coleman as Hurling Development Manager over in Connacht, and apart from Galway, he has a couple of counties there that are in the same bracket. Alan Mulhall and James Devan are doing similar work down with counties in Leinster. But lads, maybe you could just tell us one or two things that maybe you're addressing currently to try and meet the needs of hurlers in those counties.
We're employed, Martin, as from a provincial point of view. So there's like any county across the country, they have a good games program or a good coaching and games program going on within each of them counties. And our role then, from a hurling point of view, is to try and support that. We try to have an active program then that covers clubs, schools, and county development. And then within each of them strands, we try to offer an opportunity for player and coach development, and then to aim for a meaningful games program. That goes from indoor hurling to go games, regional leagues, which span across counties, and as Pádraig will allude to here too, provinces as well, at all age grades. At the minute, this is the only way forward. When you've got a lack of teams, we have to, county borders have to be dropped. At inter-county, probably the best example of this is the Celtic Challenge. I don't know if everybody here knows about the Celtic Challenge or knows the crack about it, but it's the first hurling competition that involves 32 counties. It's played at minor level, and it's now heading into its fourth year. It was an initiative that was brought in by the HTC 4 years ago, but the beauty of it is the way that it's able to be developed and tweaked every year. Teams get plenty of games. Every team gets plenty of games, and these earlier group games allow teams to be graded and then move into a knockout stage based on how they've done in the early stages. With every team in Ireland then, and when I say team, that means not just counties, because you'd have the stronger hurling counties, the tier 1 teams might have been 2 or 3 teams, and in some cases 4 teams involved in that. But every one of them teams has a real genuine opportunity of trying to make it through to a final. But the GAA then, as nationally, puts in substantial funding into this to assist with travel, equipment, and then the team's needs. But the key for the Celtic Challenge is you're not graded at the end of the year. So there's no more where you've won an All-Ireland B, you have to move to A the next year. It's a clean slate the next year. You come in, you try and play and see what you get out. And for that there, it makes it worthwhile. The strange thing about it, me telling you this, is I'm coming from a relatively weaker county. But we need them tier 1 teams to be putting in 2 or 3 teams into this. Because all our teams, all the tier 2 to tier 5 teams, all dream of one day playing against a Cork or a Cork or a Kilkenny or a Waterford or a Tipperary. This gives them this opportunity. All right?
Yeah, I suppose I'm going to speak about the Tone Oak. I think it's on the top left of the slide. Myself, Ray, and another colleague, former colleague Aidan Morgan, were instrumental in setting up this league and running it out in 2018. So as you can see, it involved 29 teams at under 13 level. There was 12 counties involved, and it was split across 3 provinces. So it was a big workload. Suppose what we're trying to do there was we're trying to give the players meaningful competitive games, something which they're lacking within their own county. If you talk about my own county, which is Monaghan, 6 hurling clubs, and within them 6 teams, there's probably 2 fairly strong, 2 medium, and then 2 weak teams. So throughout the course of the season, if they're staying in their county, each team is probably only getting 2 meaningful competitive games. So if you're only getting 2 meaningful games of hurling a year, compared to maybe 15 or 20 football games a year, I think the decision's pretty easy. You're going to say, here, I'm going to go and play football. because I get more games. That's what we want. So we come up with this idea. We had, as we say there, we had the 29 teams taking part for the first year ever, which was brilliant. Again, it was over 3 provinces and 12 counties. There was huge logistical, it was a bit of a logistical nightmare, I suppose, with some of the travelling. So what we did was we grouped them into 4 groups of 4. So each team got 3 matches, and the motto was supposed to keep the travel time down to about 45 minutes if possible, because these games were played on a Monday evening. Once they played their 3 matches, they qualified then for a semi-final. So every team, the 29 teams, got into a semi-final. Then, obviously, the 2 winners got to a final, and we tried to make it as big a day as possible. We had the finals in Clonus. We had 6 finals, starting at 11, finished at 6 o'clock in the evening. And we had the music running out. We had photographers. We had it all filmed, and we had all the music and everything. So it was a brilliant day in Clonus. Also, each player, no matter if we got to a final, semi-final, each player got a medal, a beautiful medal, and we thank Croke Park for funding that in the Hurling Development Committee. Also, I suppose the travel was a massive issue, and hopefully there's something we can do to help the clubs next year. But one of the highlights was, again, thanks to the Hurling Development Committee, each team that played in the Town Oak got free tickets to attend the All-Ireland semi-finals here. I think it was the August weekend. And I suppose some teams went on the Saturday, and that game was the Galway game, and it ended up being a draw and a clinker of a game, and everyone was thinking, we're after missing our boat, because the majority of people are going on the Sunday, including myself. And we got the Cork and Limerick game, went to extra time as well. It was another clinker of a match. So moving forward for 2019, plans are in place now to progress this, because that's what the clubs want. They want it up to under 15. So next year we're going to go under 13 and under 15, and hopefully hit around 50, maybe 55 clubs.
Thanks, Pádraig. And, again, there are a couple of initiatives that are being run by the full-time staff, and you might see there a couple of similar things happening in Connacht, under 11, under 15, adult towns again, with the same idea coming across the county borders. Leinster again, starting shortly, under 13 and 15, and adult Leinster leagues again, which are providing those needs. Ryan, a quick one to you there. Again, as a hurler, what does the ring, record and mar competitions, and now it was the McDonough, but in particular the ring, record and mar competitions, what do they mean to you and people like you, hurlers like you in those counties?
Well, I suppose to me they're vital, so they are. That's your goal at the end of the year. So for the weaker counties or the weaker tier counties, when you start your training, that's your championship. Some of the best days I had playing inter-county hurling was playing in them competitions. And I suppose every young hurler's dream is to play in Croke Park, and the Laxiam competitions give you that avenue, that chance, a realistic chance of playing in Croke Park for your county and winning. So I think they're vital that we have them. I'd like to see better coverage towards them. So maybe we have more airtime on the Sunday game or stuff like that. But in a way, I think they're a necessity. They're vital to for weaker hurling counties.
Thanks, Ryan. I say Peter's clock is ticking here, so we'll move it a little bit faster. Kevin, just going to ask you one question. How will I put this? If you had full power and you had a good checkbook, is there any initiative that's happening at the moment that you would drive harder, or is there any new initiatives that you might put in place that you think would lift hurling further, especially in the counties that need the help?
From my point of view, it probably leads on from what Ryan has just said there. You probably seen the media there yesterday that there's a very positive step by the GAA linking in with the broadcasters to provide more coverage of games. But personally, I wonder how much of that coverage will be given to Tier 2 to Tier 5 hurling. And that's my thing that I would wish for, more coverage of them games. Last year we had a fabulous introduction to the Joe McDonough. 6 teams going toe-to-toe every week. The games were fabulous. Christy Ring, absolutely fantastic competition. Teams going for it, and that's the exact same in the Nicky Rackard and the Laurie Maher. But I would love to see them get coverage, because at the minute they don't get nothing. They don't even get a snippet, even on the Sunday game. They need more coverage. And that's not just at inter-county level. I think they believe the profile of the club game within these counties really needs to be profiled higher. I can only give the example of being that in 2017, Slackneil, you know how Slackneil has been going at the minute, very strong club. They played Dunloy, another stronghold in Ulster hurling, in the Ulster semi-final in Owenbeg. 9,000 people at that game. You imagine saying there was 9,000 people at a hurling game in Ulster? Well, it does happen. And there was a clinker of a game too. But I would love to have seen that get a wee bit of coverage and really going ahead. And that's just me saying in Ulster, that can happen everywhere. We need more coverage of our club games. And then obviously, if I had the money, the people in these clubs, Martin, and these counties need that wee bit more support financially, because it does take a bit of money to travel across the country to try and get games and provide hurls and helmets for the players that are playing there.
Thanks, Kevin. Just to get to the end here, I'm just going to surprise Pádraig here a little bit. I'm going to give you a small little snapshot of a couple of days in my life. Before Christmas there, Pádraig invited me up to, better be careful now, it was Fermanagh, wasn't it? It was Fermanagh. I have to be careful, my geography wouldn't be great. But I think it's a good story, because it shows you the people that I'm meeting, the unbelievable people that are, you know, they're beavering away there without a pick and a shovel. So the first night up anyway, the first stop was a little workshop for, I think he called it new coaches. Now bear in mind, Fermanagh, okay, bear in mind, I'm coming from Kilkenny, I'm coming from, because of where I was lucky enough to be born and lucky enough to be involved with teams, coming from out here on that field for 7 All-Irelands and winning 6 of them. Now I might add, on the sideline, not as a player. And then you go up to Fermanagh, which I suppose is kind of, in hurling terms, they're kind of like Kilkenny football. So you can work that out yourself. So I was heading up there on a Thursday evening for a session with new coaches. I said there might be 3 or 4 here, because I've been in places and we got 3 or 4. That's 3 or 4 more than 0. But anyway, we started off and we had 20 or 21 new coaches, and that was unbelievable. Straight away then, whisked into, and I wasn't ready for it, I think he called it a county forum, and told me at the last minute that I was chairing it. And I says, how can we have a county forum in a county where there's only one adult club? But no, he surprised me, and then he says, we have 6 or was it 7 new units. Whoa. So that was different. So in we go, and we had about 30 people at it. Every one of those units were present. But most important, the county chairman, the county secretary was there, and this blew me away. We had a great little session there. You know, a lot of stuff was thrown around, which I had to throw back to Pádraig, but that's beside the point. Next day then, we had a meeting with the county board officers, which again was brilliant. People that weren't claiming to know much about hurling, but they were interested in seeing how they can move it forward and how they can help. And I was blown away with that. Tremendous. I skip a few bits. Next morning, or the morning after, 10 o'clock, to train the county team, which also involved every club player in the county, because the one team is the county team, list below. And of course, the lads had it organised for 10 o'clock in the morning. I says, there's not a hope. There was only 7 lads turned up at 10 o'clock in the morning, but we carried on. And by the time we got into it, we had a turnout. And I made the guys that were late suffer, both verbally and physically. But county chairman then whisked me through back roads down to do a session with, I think it was a development squad. And I think he was trying to lose me along the way, because he probably thought that nobody turned up. But I stuck with him. And we arrived in, and by the time we arrived, there were 40 youngsters on the field. This was mind-blowing. 40 youngsters. Now, the adults, the seniors, could have taken a leaf out of their book, because they were late, but the youngsters were on the field at the appointed time. Then we had to get off the pitch, I think, after 3 hours or 3.5 hours coaching, because it was county final on. And I was the guest of honour at the county final. Brilliant. A quiz question. How do you attend the county final and every game in the championship at the same time? Well, there were only 2 teams in the championship, so there was only 1 match. And it's funny, but that's reality. And it was brilliant. The game was competitive. One team won by a good bit, but it didn't matter. Both teams kept playing, and the ground hurling was brutal, to be honest about it. But other than that, the standard was quite good. Guys on the sideline were very enthusiastic, and there was no madness, and that was grand. So I had the honour then, thanks Pádraig, of making the presentation. But I also had the honour of doing umpire. And thanks, Pádraig. I think Pádraig was doing it on the other end. I mean, that's hurling. It was brilliant.
You've done a great job.
Good man. Yeah, you got a few wrong calls. You could have done with the Hawkeye. Okay, you're all right. The match was won by about 10 goals, so there was nothing controversial. But anyway, Then we ran out of there, and this was unreal. I found it in my pocket here. Lisbon, 50 years. Gala dinner. After 50 years at the club, I was invited up to it. This blew me away. Couldn't believe it. I did a bit of research on the way up about Lisbon, and where it is, somewhere off up on the map up near Donegal. And they're 50 years running. Could not believe this. Their first committee, 50 years ago. Their chairman, what age was he? 16. Their secretary, what age was he? 16. Their PRO, what age was he? 14. The only adult officer, obviously, was the treasurer. Now, so at the gala, those guys were there, I got to meet them, and they're still hugely involved in the club. It was unbelievable, hugely involved. I said, this is the GAA, this is club. And the chairman, Benny, I forget his second name.
McManus.
Benny McManus. Benny, you didn't think much of Benny to look at him. And I made a savage presentation to him after this big painting. And I look back through photographs. Benny is chairman of the club. He's been involved all his life. He was on that first team that I had, which was a minor team. So, you know, that to me, that little odyssey to Fermanagh, that voyage to Fermanagh, to me is what the GAA is all about. So, to finish off, answer the question. Who won? The Lowry Mar, Sligo. Donegal won the record. Kildare, as we heard already, won the Christie Ring. And the first time ever, Carlow are going up where they're going to see another side of it. They won the Joe McDonagh. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, lads. Thank you very much.